I don't know what it's like to not be able to hear the other side or see the other side. I actually enjoy the dead a whole lot more than the living. I didn't realize I was different until I was in my 20s. I thought people just didn't talk about seeing the dead. When I was a little girl, I'd play in my room by myself all the time. And I know this will sound crazy to some people, but this is the world I live in. I drew in old men wearing suspenders with, mustaches and hats on from another time, clearly. And they'd play poker in my room at a card table while I'd play with my dolls.
I don't know if anyone commits suicide has come through, or if that's...
many.
Really?
Yeah, because in the last 15 years, I've seen younger suicides than I've ever seen in my entire career. And I do think on some level, social media is playing into those suicides.
So your husband's an astrophysicist.
Yes.
Picking up where we left off, the conversation was so interesting. And he's trying to find what dark matter is in the universe. How interesting that you both are interested in what's out there.
Yeah, we're both so different and so the same all at the same time. It's amazing. Yeah.
Science versus spirituality.
Yes.
I have this belief that spirituality is just things that science hasn't proven yet. What do you think?
I agree, and I love it. I was being studied by scientists for a few years, actually. I ended up being part of a skull experiment, which I turned on the TV the other day, and it was me like 15, 20 years ago.
Skull? Did you say skull?
S-K-O-A-L experiments where they were studying mediumship and people of the ethereal, but from a scientific perspective. And I thought it was interesting to watch the scientists try and measure it and try and put in sort of protocols to be able to make sure that it isn't something other than what we're doing. And I looked up and I was part of the skull experiment. I forgot how many experiments I was part of. I never knew where the footage went, so it was interesting. But my husband used to go with me and check out what the scientists were doing. So at that point, he looked at me and he said, "Science can study many things, but we don't have all the answers." And he says, "I don't know how you do what you do, but there it is." So, yeah,
and science still changes.
Science does change.
It can be static for a while, but with new information and discoveries comes sometimes new science.
And then they'll disprove some of their own theories of the past. Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Evolution of our mind, I would think. I think we learn to see in a different way or look outside of the box, and we have a different perspective than they do 100 years ago, say, where they were studying and reaching the conclusion that they did at the time. They did the best with that they could with what they had, and we have to value that as well. But I do believe we evolve in how we think, and we've just seen more at this point than people did 100 years ago.
It gives me the vision of cymatics and how it shows you in a visual way patterns based on sound and frequency. And when the pattern becomes a higher frequency, higher pitch, more complex, it goes from the design that it had originally to the new frequency and sound, and it completely dismantles everything, which is what it feels like is happening in the world. And then it reestablishes and organizes itself in the more complex way. And I wonder if by raising our frequency, I don't know what you believe about mankind and elevating our frequency, but having to do it slow so that we essentially don't short circuit. But getting to that new frequency ultimately gives you new information because you're able to see it from a more complex perspective with more information. I believe in frequencies 100% and being able to raise our own level of energy to not only see things differently, but function on a higher level. And I think it's why when we're around people that don't have our frequency, you can be repelled by it, and you'll feel like a low level frequency in the person that almost feels dead. And I don't mean dead in a disrespecting my dead friends on the other side, because they always say they're more alive than we are, and I believe that's true. But with people who feel almost dead inside, but they're walking around, they're hard to be around because they almost feel like an energy drain. And we're all familiar with the term energy vampire.
where you feel like people just take from you, take from you, take from your energy, and they're exhausting to be around. And you get around people with a higher frequency, and you don't feel that your energy being pulled from you anymore. You feel even that they'll share their energy with you. And so we vibe with certain people because we're on the same frequency.
Do people have different size fields too?
I think some people project more than other people because they have higher frequency, but I think some negative people can also project energy where they force you to feel their energy. For instance, if you're in a restaurant and somebody's super loud because they need attention and they need everybody to know that they're there, I'm here, I've arrived, and they need everybody to hear them, they'll try and get your attention, sort of negative attention seeking in that way. But you're not able to avoid their frequency because they're projecting it out towards you. So it can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing.
I'm a big believer in frequency. For me, of all the clairs, like I guess I feel like I'm like, I don't know if I resonate with any of them too much, other than maybe claircognizant, because I don't like necessarily see or hear something. I just seem to know things, or be like something just feels so true to me. But in general, with like capabilities in that way, it feels like frequency, sensitivity, resonance feels like, for me, what's the most prevalent that I experience. But you have probably all of them.
I don't know any other way to be, because I've been this way my whole life, and people ask me that. I know some people have near-death experiences and it triggers it for them, but for me, I was like this as a child. And so I don't know what it's like to not be able to hear the other side or see the other side, and I don't want to know what that would be like, because to me that would be hell. After being able to do this my whole life, if I couldn't do it, that would be a hell, because I actually enjoy the dead a whole lot more than the living. And I don't mean that as a knock to the living, but the dead are the best versions of themselves. So I'm getting the best energy of their totality of who they were as people. And they're sharing their story with me. So I feel almost as if I'm being shown a movie, or somebody's, I'm reading their book of who their life, what their life was, and who they loved, and I feel how they loved. And I feel so lucky to be able to do that with all of the people who have passed, because I learned something from all of them. They are also frequencies. They are a higher frequency than we are. We are low level. We're here learning how to raise our frequency.
I get pulled way deep into the lowest levels at times.
Well, and that can be depression.
Sure.
You know, where you don't feel like you have any energy to give. And that's when we call a friend, because they lend us some of their energy and they help us balance out.
But what's interesting about people that get depressed is that they tend to go the opposite direction.
They go into a dark hole.
Has the other side ever talked about that? About sort of like about depression, or about turning away from others and going inward, but like actually not really inward in a positive way, just sort of going down. Have they talked about that before? Or I mean, maybe also because I don't know if suicide, I don't know if anyone commits suicide has come through, or if that's
many.
Really?
They go to the same place that we all go. So their energy balances out once the body's gone, because it's usually a biological reason.
Really?
That they had a chemical imbalance.
Really?
Something was throwing the chemistry of their brain off that took them to the depths of depression. And then you add drugs or alcohol into that, which plunges them further down it. So the dead are around us saying, you need to raise your energy level, you need to do this, don't, turn to the dark side, so to speak, don't go there. Because that is the most basic primal instinct of ours, is to hide and to go within. And that's what we do when we're depressed, and some people can't handle it. But just because somebody dies of suicide doesn't mean they don't go where everyone else does. They do, but they usually revert to a younger age. And that's how I can tell if somebody died of suicide in a reading, because they'll show themselves to me and they'll say, I'm 17, or none of them go back to 43, but they'll say they're 17 or they're 23. They go to a younger age when their energy was high, the last time they were happy. The happiest time in their life is where we revert to.
So that's the best version of them.
It's the best version of them. and they say, this is me now, look at these pictures. But when they go back to being too young and they didn't die at that age, like say 11, I know it was a suicide because they went back to childhood before the chemical imbalance took a hold of them. And then there's a very small percentage of people who were born that never wanted to be here. They don't know why they're here. And that's a very small percentage of people that I bring through, but I do see that where they're almost too sensitive and they take in too much energy from around them and it shuts them down and they can't be here. Like they're better than we are in a way. They're a pure energy.
They're so out of resonance with everyone that it's so uncomfortable. It was actually kind of one of the last things I was going to ask you about was about highly sensitive people, but since you brought it up, it's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately because I feel like either I'm meeting more of them or maybe they are figuring it out and having more resources. Maybe it's just time. Maybe it's just age and like meeting more people and knowing more people. But I feel like there are so many highly sensitive, very, very empathic people that they don't know what to do with that. People don't believe what they see and hear. Probably you experienced that, or you might have, of course, but they also don't know what to do with the energy coming at them. And of the very little experience I've had with anxiety and with some of these energies is that sometimes you don't know if it's yours or not. So that can be very confusing for the person because when you feel what they feel, you don't know if that's yours or not. And are you that sad? Are you that depressed? Are you that mad?
You can take on other people's depression and their energy, and it's usually sensitives that actually struggle with the depression, and usually it's people who have weak borders and boundaries. And I teach my students this. I have dead university. Of course I do. So
to be honest, it'd be the best university anyone could go to, in my opinion. So, unless you're a doctor or a lawyer, you do kind of need that experience. But other than that, I can't think of a better one.
Thank you. I teach mediums how to set borders and boundaries for themselves. Observe, don't absorb.
Yeah.
And I found that to be helpful for me in airports. Airports send me through the roof. Baggage claim.
Oh,
not
God.
a fan. You know?
Sure. So, think about it. They're meeting someone. They're excited. They're not excited. They're anxious about this or that. Well,
and there are different combinations of energies all around you all at once, and sensitives will draw it in from every direction.
Yeah.
So I had to train myself. Observe, don't absorb. Almost as if I have sunglasses on and I'm just looking at them, but I'm not going into their energy field. I'm not trying to probe them with my eyes. I'm not trying to read their energy. I think a lot of sensitives will start reading people's energy without realizing they're doing it.
Right.
And if you recognize that you're doing it, you can pull back, and that's a boundary for yourself. That's protection. And that's observing with your eyes, but not absorbing their energy and taking it into your own.
There are people I'm sure that you're working with and you're talking about mediumship and that are really aware of their abilities and skills. And I'm thinking about the ones that don't know, the ones that are like just below that threshold, right? That are just very empathic feelers. Like I just call them, they're just feelers, you know? And those are the people that I think might even struggle the most because it's almost like it's just undiagnosed essentially. And I feel like these are the people that go more into depression, addiction, avoidant behaviors. Like it's almost like they do these things because they feel so much that they need to mute it.
They self-isolate and they become depressed because they stay in their own apartment or their own home.
And dull themselves too, like even just from a truly biological standpoint, whether it's with drugs or alcohol or any kind of addiction. It could be...
It's an emotional disconnection.
It could be anything. It could be, you know, watching a certain show or watching TV. It could be anything.
I watched Love Boat. I watch old episodes of the Love Boat when things were easy. And I'm like, okay, this is funny and light. I don't have to feel. I don't have to think.
Escape, essentially.
It's an escape. And that's why reality TV is so big, is because people are like watching it, but it's sort of not real to them. And it's just a mental escape. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. But I feel like there's just not enough awareness for this category of people.
Or acceptance
and the skill,
of it.
Or acceptance even. Just like, you know, I'm not really one of those. So like I've definitely judged before on some level, like good Lord, get it together. Like stop crying. Like
Suck
you
it
don't
up.
need to talk to everybody, you know, like,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
But there's just, I feel like we need help in this. This is like an area of people that need help, and that the Dead University sounds like it would be really helpful.
Yeah.
But so what was that? So it's observe.
Observe, don't absorb. And it's what I work with my students on. And then there's some people who have no borders and boundaries that you can't even teach it because they're not going to do it.
Right.
And so for them, I can't take control of and fix that for them because they're not participating in the process. They're choosing victimhood. But for most people, they'll try and implement the borders and boundaries into their life. And we can't self-isolate, obviously, even though I would like to, because I'm an Aquarius and I like being alone. It doesn't bother me in the least. I'll go to the movies alone. I don't care. But for what you're saying, most people do have some ability to empathize with others and draw in their energy. And we don't really teach the borders and boundaries. And I didn't realize I was different until I was in my 20s. I thought people just didn't talk about seeing the dead, wink, wink. You know, they didn't talk about it. They didn't have conversations on it. And I was always drawn to movies or TV that would depict spirits. And it always made sense to me. Like Somewhere in Time, I saw when I was a little girl with Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour. And at the end, they die and they're together. And I looked at my dad, because we were at the movies together, because I was a little girl. And I said, that makes sense. I said, that makes sense, Dad. And he just looked at me and he's like, eat your bonbons. And I'm like, okay. But for me, it made sense that they crossed, they went back to a younger age, and that they found each other. And that, you know, when it feels right, when it rings true, when it's a knowing.
Yeah,
it's a sense of knowing.
Yep.
I thought everybody felt that. I thought everybody, when I was a little girl, I'd play in my room by myself all the time. And there was a table, and I know this will sound crazy to some people, but this is the world I live in. My reality of what I've always experienced, my energy must be a grumpy old man, because I drew in old men wearing suspenders with, you know, mustaches and hats on from another time, clearly, and they'd play poker in my room at a card table while I'd play with my dolls. And they'd have cigars, and they'd sit there with their glass of scotch.
You'd watch this?
Yeah, but I didn't think anything of it because they felt safe to me. And so I think I reminded them of a granddaughter, and so they were comfortable being around me because I could see them. And I was comfortable with them because I could feel their energy, and I knew that they just liked being there. So it didn't scare me. It actually made me more comfortable than living people did. And it's why I say children are amazing. And I think it's funny that people recognize that children are sensitive, that children, if they're repelled by someone, don't make them be around that person. You know, as adults, we have to stand behind that. But why would we think that children would grow up and become adults that wouldn't share that same sensitivity that they had as kids?
Sure.
That's the leap. I think it's an easy connection to make. Of course there are adults that are empaths. They were children that were empaths. And so I think people have to get over thinking it's just children that feel that way. It's all of us. We're human beings, and animals. Animals sense danger. Animals sense a good person. You know, we watch those videos on Instagram of the British soldier on the horse, and the horse doesn't like people and it keeps butting them away, but then the kid with special needs comes up and the horse sort of gravitates to the child because it senses gentleness. Animals sense, they feel. So it's just interesting to me that there are people that are so stuck in their head they don't see how feeling we are as human beings, and that it's natural. Energy is what we're made of. So why is this such a hard leap for people to make? And I have been studied by scientists. I've watched the eggheads study me for years. I jumped through all the hoops. I did all the testing. And at the end of the day, all they could say is, you're doing something. This is your accuracy rating. This is how you did on this test. And they were all published in academic journals. And after 4 years, I was like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Why am I trying to prove anything to anyone anymore? And so I stopped then. So people always said, what do you say to skeptics? I'm like, I understand people who are science-minded or may feel skeptical, but a good scientist or a wise person would say, we don't have all the answers. And they leave it at that instead of insisting that it couldn't be true. So I find it interesting. I was in school to be an attorney. This was not going to be my profession. I got a degree in political science and history at Arizona State, and I took my LSATs. I was going to law school. And then all of this started coming out in my late 20s, where I started sharing with my husband more of what I was seeing, and he started testing it. And I would pick up information on cases I would see on TV, and it was like the pilot episode of Medium. He faxed it to Texas, and that was my first case with the Texas Rangers and the Tarrant County Sheriff. And so I don't know how I do what I do. I can tell you it's genetic.
You should probably just go ahead and be a lawyer now anyway. You win every time, because they'd be like, oh, sorry, we got DuBois as the
prosecutor,
other counsel. You're like, just give up. Like, we should
That's-
just like have a deal, make a deal, because she sees stuff we don't.
Well, the problem I was having is I wanted to be a judge ultimately, but I couldn't be impartial if I knew the person was guilty, if I sensed they were guilty, so I couldn't do my job.
No, you'd be the best judge.
Thank you.
You'd be the best judge.
I had to bow out because I couldn't take an oath to be impartial. That would be a problem for me. I wanted to put bad guys away. That was what I wanted to do since the 5th grade. I decided I was going to be an attorney, protect kids. I started carrying an attaché case, wearing my penny loafers. Kids made fun of me at school. What do you go to private school? I'm like, no, I'm here with you dummies. Clearly I'm in a public school here. And that's what it was. And that's how I grew up. So I felt like a lawyer. I felt like I was going to be a legal eagle of sorts. But I did initiate the Amber Alert for the state of Arizona. And I served on the task force to design that. And I got the age raised to 17. So that, I'm sorry, I got it lowered to 15 so that if somebody 15 or 16 disappeared, we didn't assume they were a runaway. And so that they'd look at the younger people that were disappearing as well, and not just 17 and up. So that was important. So I did that in like 2001. I beat on every politician's door in Arizona. I got more doors slammed in my face than I could say, but finally one listened and we got it done. So I was pretty proud of that. Wow. So I don't just come at it from a mediumship perspective. I want to help save kids, and I think I did my job in doing that for Arizona.
I would say so. Yeah. I would say so, even without being a judge.
Yes.
Putting bad people away.
Yes.
I definitely want to come back to politics, because that's such a hot topic right now and so much going on.
Yeah.
But there was something you said earlier about children not wanting to be here, and that they were very confused. And I love listening. She's passed now, Dolores Cannon. You know, she was a hypnotherapist, and she talked a lot about the waves of volunteers. And are you familiar with that?
I see her on Instagram, so her clips still go up.
Yeah, all of her clips are of her, of a 80-some-year-old lady just riffing on stuff like it's factual, and it's just like the coolest thing. It's like grandma just telling you everything. But she talks about the waves of volunteers and how there's, as time has gone on, they have different orientation, and that there's been one, like the first wave of volunteers really didn't want to be here. Like they didn't get it. They don't want to be here. One of them's like the next one brings energy, but doesn't really want to participate in things. They tend to be single too much. They do anyway, there's these waves of volunteers, and I wondered if it just kind of fit into anything that you've learned or discovered. And if that, I don't know if that even comes through about different star seeds and...
See, I don't go that deep into the terminology such as star seeds, and I know there's some mediums that go to these other realms in their mind. I don't even try to. I'm still trying to figure out this one. And I'm really trying to get the people here to understand the dead better and not be afraid of them. But I do believe there are some beings that are born that don't want to be here. And they're being given an opportunity to be here, to evolve in the way that they're supposed to. But they're so sensitive in nature that it hurts to be here. And I've been in their energy before because I tap into their energy in readings to understand them and to know what they're made of. And they'll share with me through their energy how sensitive they are and how everything felt to them and how it hurt. And I can understand how they couldn't hold on anymore. And that makes me very sad for them. But they're the minority of souls that I'll bring through. Most, it's an evolution of a chemical imbalance that happens, and then coupled with drugs or alcohol is the final catalyst for their departure. But with the really small children, it's hard to understand because in the last 15 years, I've seen younger suicides than I've ever seen in my entire career as a medium. And it's really bothered me. And I do think on some level, social media is playing into those suicides because they're seeing more than their soul can handle. Young souls can't handle the things they're seeing and absorbing through social media. They can't handle the negative responses they get or the lack of response, which to them signifies that they don't matter, that they don't count. And those problems didn't exist before for us in that way. So I think that's why I've seen a spike in younger suicides, and by younger I mean 11. That's too
young to even entertain how to do it or contemplate that kind of a thought.
And they'll do it in a way that's so making a statement. I have brought through in the last 10 years, and this is actually alarming to me, but maybe the numbers won't strike your audience as much, but to me it's alarming. 3 11-year-olds didn't know each other, different parts of the country, that hung themselves. That's a statement when you hang yourself. You're making a statement to the people left behind, and you're making sure that you don't survive it. I'm able to take the temperature of the world in real time through readings. I can see what's changing politically. I can see what matters to the soul that crosses on the other side. They don't talk about politics. Very seldom does religion come up. Sometimes when it was their whole life, they'll have a cross on a chain, or the Jewish moms love showing the braided breads and stuff that they would bake. And I love that. I love all of that. But I can see where we're going wrong as a country or worldwide based on, because I read people around the world. The suicides, fentanyl. Fentanyl, in the last 10 years, I've brought through more people that died of fentanyl that I actually had to learn the feeling for fentanyl to say fentanyl in readings.
Oh, goodness.
Because it's kind of similar to heroin, where when they say they didn't feel anything, they were numb. They always use that word numb. When they say that, I know it was fentanyl or heroin, because they didn't feel a thing in their passing. But that wasn't a problem before. In the early 2000s, when I started doing this professionally, teenagers or young people, it was car accidents that I would bring through, which is still terrible, but it would be a car accident. And then it just morphed into fentanyl, where I barely see car accidents now. It's mostly drug related.
Oh, man.
So they've got to get something under control, and I know that that's going to start happening now. The border is a problem. I don't care what people think. I'm a spiritualist. I know the border is a problem. I'm a native Arizonan, born, raised. I've seen it my whole life. So there's room for a spiritual world in a physical world, and there's room for the physical world in a spiritual realm as well. And I think people just have to use common sense. Is that asking a lot?
Revolutionary.
Well, we've got a lot of revolutionary aspects going on this year.
Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about
the
temperature of the planet, the things going on. You just go off the top of what's come up for you the most.
Okay, so 2024 was very painful for people, and I'll try and break it down very simply for numerology and how we look at energies of the year. So in 2024, if you add up all the numbers in 2024, it totals 8. It's an 8 year. An 8 year is a year of transformation. That was the year that we were supposed to figure out who we want in our life. Do I want to be married? Do my friends serve my purpose? Do I want this career? Do I want to change lanes in my career? Because a lot of my clients right now are completely leaving their careers, going into new fields. It's just what they need. And so these are the sorts of things. Do I want to move? Do I want to buy a house? Transformation. Do I want to be a better person? Am I a spiritualist? Like, people are trying to figure out who they are. That's what 2024 was. It was very painful for people. And I say, in a 9-year cycle, the first 8 years, the universe is like, go you, you've got this, like, grow, evolve. And it's nice about it. And when a 9-year comes in, which is 2025, they're tired of being nice about it. So for those who haven't evolved, it's almost forced by the universe to face where you're supposed to be, as opposed to what you've tried to hold on to that no longer serves you. So in 2025, it's a year of endings. It's going to put an end to things that don't serve us once and for all, but this can be good. It can be the end of an addiction, which is a great thing. So a big relief for a lot of people, that some people will wake up. It's going to end marriages. You're going to see a lot of divorces for people that you don't expect to ever divorce, will divorce in 2025. So the hammer is going to get brought down. It's also ending things such as, I can't get pregnant, I'm having trouble having a baby, all of a sudden you get pregnant. So that's a good thing. So people have to look at it as not all bad just because it's a year of endings. It's for our own good. And it's something
bad
we didn't...
things end too.
Right. And it's something we didn't have the power to do ourselves. The universe is going to give us a big help. So it's going to open a lot of eyes in 2025 to what was really going on. So a lot of secrets are going to get revealed in 2025. And this is going to be a very interesting year. So I'm like, pop the popcorn, get the wine.
Oh.
Like, I'm here for it. I want to see what the Band-Aids, like, rip the Band-Aid off. We're going to see a lot this year.
Any indication of what those kinds of things would be that you've seen or heard or felt or intuitively?
I think with, like, P. Diddy, Epstein files, things are going to start surfacing that we've been entitled to know.
Sure.
I mean, we pay enough for all the investigations out of tax dollars, and so those things are going to start coming out. I wouldn't be surprised if we got papers on JFK and who killed him.
Kash Patel, who's probably going to be head of the FBI, has been talking about all that stuff needs to get released.
It does. And my sense is it had to have been a government institution, otherwise they wouldn't have worked so hard to cover it up all these years.
Like, this is what happened.
Yeah, it's going to be a very simple answer, just an answer that a government institution doesn't want known about it. Like, they've had the best PR lockdown on this for, 60 years? And I feel like that's going to come to the surface. So we're going to see a lot of things that we already sort of sensed come to light. So I love coming to light moments.
So you get excited about these years as opposed to scared for these years.
Yes, I do. And so there were some aspects astrologically that are coming up, not just the fires and the winds and everything that's been happening, but there are aspects that would deal with war. And I've talked to astrologers about this as well. Even though you see it like flare up at certain times, I'm like, doesn't that mean we have to fight back to end something that's already been started? A war that's already going that we end up maybe lowering the boom and ending. Yes, they say, it can be that. So I think we're going to see movement when it comes to the conflicts that are going on around the world, where we put an end to things that have been going on. It's going to be a complete redesign of every country in the world is what's going on right now. It's the end of government the way we knew it.
So
this whole 9-year cycle.
You mean the end of the world as we know it?
Yeah, right. In a good way.
In a
good way.
Like I think about it in a biblical way where, you know, the apocalypse, but it's just the words also don't mean the end of the world itself. It's just the world as we know it.
It's whoever's interpreting it as apocalyptic. So that's true. So we had Pluto in Capricorn for 16 years, which I found extremely painful.
Really?
And the reason,
how come? It seems like such a stable
Pluto. So it's transformation of the people and the like everything. It's transformation of everything.
Right. Pluto's like the ultimate transformer. Like.
Right, and it's slow moving, so it's in the sign for a very long time.
Right.
So when it was in Capricorn,
so
it was
Earth.
Government controlling the people. Capricorn rules government. It was the government controlling the people.
Yeah.
Pluto went into Aquarius. It had been in Capricorn since 2008. And if you start looking back at what changed then, right? At all the things, the institutions, the banks were crumbling, real estate, the bubble burst, like a lot of things happened.
Because it's so business. I think of Capricorn, I think of business.
Capricorn's
like if someone's Capricorn,
money.
they're like a money, they're business. Like
but it's also government.
But it could be
they
bad
control
business
the money.
too.
Right. So that's what's been happening since '08, where Daddy's been running things, because Capricorn rules father. It's father energy.
Yeah.
Father energy, there's no bigger patriarch than governments. So that's how you would read that. So that came to an end in November of this last year.
Right on time.
Right on time. And it went into Aquarius. Aquarius is rebellion of the people.
Yeah, I was going to is this going to be okay?
Yes.
Aquarius seems even more unstable.
Aquarius is the fixed air sign. It can be extremely stable, but its characteristics are very different than Capricorn. It's rebellion of the people, where the people look at the government and say, we don't like what you're doing, we're going to change it. So you're seeing this happen in Syria, South Korea. You're seeing governments sort of implode. And I've been saying for the last year, you're going to see prime ministers. I called that one a while ago. I was like, Canada's going to have a different leader. You're going to see all these different countries completely change direction of where they were going for the last
as far as money goes,
years.
I mean, maybe I should really start to invest in a lot more Bitcoin.
Okay, so I get that, because Aquarius is everything outside of the box.
Right.
So that's where the money's going to be, and it will be in Aquarius for over 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
So,
let me call my people.
Right?
Get it now before.
Right? So Aquarius is technology.
Yeah.
It's space. It's anything outside of the box.
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
That's where you want to invest. All of the things people used to invest in, Capricorn, all of the things that were the sort of institution, like the old fatherly ways of doing things, won't work anymore. The money's going to come from Aquarius energy and things that are outside of the box. Yeah, so when you say cryptocurrency, there could be money in it. It doesn't mean cryptocurrency is going to be successful for the people trying to then cash in what they bought and use it as real money to buy real things.
Right.
You know, but it means your stocks go up, but can you cash that in? So there's things that you have to look at in in the reality of it, if it will translate into real money, because we still live in the physical world.
Yeah. Exactly. You still have to be able to use it.
Right. You might have invested $400 that's now worth like 1.1 million, but can you actually pull real money out of that?
I actually literally just today bought my first coin. Today. And I was like, should I buy one or should I buy two? And I'm like, well, maybe I'll buy one and then I'll wait for the next dip and whatever that is, and then buy one more and then just let it sit for like the next 10 plus years, you know?
And you can
just
do
see
that.
What happens.
I mean, do that. It's
Is that a good idea based on Aquarius?
You know,
energy?
It's funny because cryptocurrency is really the umbrella of what something you would consider Aquarian.
Sure.
Bitcoin is an area under that umbrella.
Right.
It's one of the companies.
Right.
So whether or not Bitcoin ends up paying off remains to be seen and translating into real money.
Yeah.
So
fair.
I would say it's a good bet, it's a fun bet, but it's not necessarily going to translate into real paper. It's not like other forms, right?
Yeah.
But Aquarius is telling us to do things differently.
Yeah.
And it does rule technology, and that is technological money.
Yep.
So I would say that would be an Aquarian thing,
Cool.
and I would read it as it's good that you bought it.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
That's good.
yeah, so it's gonna be very interesting. I'm ready for this whole Aquarius thing. Aquarius is also the humanitarian of the zodiac. She empathizes, but people see her as very cold, like me. I'm Aquarius. They see me as very icy, like the Ice Queen. You know, can't touch her, and sharp tongue, and you know, once you're done with someone, we're done. Like they're our past. But
is that my Venus in Aquarius and we're in action
with relationships,
because I have Venus.
Yeah. So
Venus
when you're done with
Aquarius.
someone, you're just absolutely done with
That's
them,
right.
and you don't look
always,
back.
That's always their fear, because I'm like, I'll never talk to you again.
And they'll look at you.
And they're like, you'll never talk to me. I'm like, I'll never talk to you again.
You're like, because right now we just decided we don't need each other, so we're done.
We're done.
Right. So you understand Aquarius energy then. That's what that's what we've gone into.
All right. Interesting. Well, it's clean.
Right.
I feel like Aquarius energy is it's very simple, straightforward, and clean and honest.
It is.
It doesn't mean it's always like it doesn't mean everyone's always happy about it.
Right.
But at least it's an integrity and clean.
And it is. And so although she's
There's no games there.
There's no games.
Not like just being your friend after we break up just because I'm like nice. I'm like, no, there's just no point.
There's no point.
But
your Aries helps you with that too, because
Sure.
you have a sun and moon in Aries. And so your moon's your emotions. So with your Aries, you're living in the moment.
Yeah.
So that helps you not to look back too.
Yeah.
So we're going to see a lot of that. So even though Aquarius is the humanitarian of the zodiac, she's not a doormat. And people always get that confused. It's like, no, she will give a homeless person a cheeseburger, but she won't give them money for heroin. So that's an Aquarian energy. So we'll help unless we feel like we're being taken advantage of, and then we'll scrape you off. That's Aquarius. So that's what we
a
just
lot more
wanted
Aquarius
to,
than I thought I had. Have you ever charted President Trump or anybody like in politics to kind of check out what's going on?
Well, I have,
or Biden or Kamala or anybody? Have you?
Well, I've looked at just some of their basic signs. So, and I did this with my friend Tom McMullen. He's a karmic astrologer.
Oh, yeah.
So he's amazing. So last summer, I'm like, okay, Trump's a Gemini, Kamala's a bad Libra, and Biden is Scorpio in a full moon in Taurus. He was born in a lot of opposition in his own chart internally. That's why it's always about him. It's why when he tells a story, it always goes back to him, because it's like he's got that Scorpio nature, and he's able to say, but look at me, look at how I feel. So I was looking at those energies and what we're going into, but I looked more at Pluto going into Aquarius is what told me who was going to win, because it had to be somebody that was a rebel, somebody that bucked the system, somebody that not everyone likes. And that was Trump. So I was like, he's the people's rebellion. That's what he is. Yeah. So this is very Pluto and Aquarius where we're at right now. And you're going to see a lot of the country trying to figure out how to kumbaya it out and live together. And I think even with California with the fires right now, North Carolina with the hurricanes, let's not forget them. It draws our empathy, which is what brings us all together, is our ability to empathize as human beings for other people that are going through hardships. And so even though this fire is a terrible, terrible thing to happen, it feels like it's a microcosm of exactly what's supposed to be happening with people seeing things for what they truly are and how it functions in California, the government. This is going to be their rebellion, where they look at the government and they're angry with how things played out. So this all goes right along with Pluto and Aquarius.
You know who Charlie Kirk is? He's here local and great guy, but they track so many of those metrics and they do so much activation. They're involved in high schools and colleges with chapters and conservative teachings. Anyway, the most right shifting state voting was California.
Right.
Obviously still went Democrat, but they shifted more than any other state.
If this had happened before the election,
can you imagine?
They probably would have actually gone red.
I mean, if if California becomes a red state,
Again.
Again?
It has been a red state in the past.
Really?
In the 90s, it was a red state.
I mean, I guess in the law of like nature, things tend to move, but I can't
I'm
imagine
10 years older than
they'd
you.
ever.
I remember things.
I just got into politics, so I feel like I'm just new to it all.
That's
But
okay.
they'll never be Democrats won't win forever if that's the case, because there's so many electoral votes in California.
Well,
And we've already shifted, I think they said, based on population changes and the way that affects the electoral votes. We've already shifted 11 or 12 votes right now.
yeah. It's amazing. They all came here.
I know.
Arizona, Texas.
I mean, the football game the other
Nashville.
night, the football game that was supposed to be in LA,
Yeah.
it was in Arizona.
Yeah, yeah,
because,
right.
you know, where you go, you come here.
Right.
Yeah. Here in Texas.
Well, we're an Aquarian state. That's
Oh.
a funny thing about Arizona.
Wait, states have a sign?
Yes.
Stop it.
It's
what?
It's when the state was founded.
Oh.
And so we're February 14th,
How
1912.
sweet are we?
I know, what
Valentine's
angels.
Day.
And so we're an Aquarian state. We really don't like people here energetically, you know, like we're like,
Fit in perfect.
but at the same time, it's beautiful here and there's space. So people like to be here because
Right.
Aquarius likes her space. She doesn't want people in her energy space. It aggravates her. And so you're seeing this, even this push-pull going on here right now, where the state's trying to be what it is and it's fighting what's trying to make it different with the building going on here. So there's a lot of microcosms going on around our country right now that are representations of exactly the energy taking place right now. And we have Neptune moving into Aries, and we have Saturn moving into.
If you can remember this all off the
Okay.
top of your head, I'd be like super impressed.
No, it's a lot. Saturn's moving into Aries, Neptune's moving into Aries in April of this year. And it stays there for 14 years. Neptune does.
That's a lot of energy.
It's a lot of energy, but Neptune
Tell
was.
me about Aries energy from your perspective,
Okay.
because I don't feel like I even have that easy a time of figuring out Aries energy.
Yeah.
If I'll like know it's a fire sign, and then I'll go, okay, Sagittarius, are they really funny? Do they like to travel? And then I'll be like, Leo, are they really like theatrical?
Yeah.
Are they extravagant? You know, and then it's always like the leftover one that I'm like, oh, it's Aries. I have a hard time even identifying
You're the
myself.
first one of the zodiac. You're the first house, you know. So you're young energy. Aries never grow up. I kind of love this about them. They're young at heart, so no matter how old they get, they constantly re-energize themselves as people. If you're an Aries, no matter what age you are, you have to be an athlete. Aries rules athletes, and so if they're not working out as they get older, they get pent up, angry, and depressed.
100%.
It's something they have to do.
It actually balances my energy.
It does. And so anyone that's watching, I would say, if you are a Sun in Aries, for sure, you definitely need to go play pickleball, do something, take dance lessons, but get out there. Aries energy lives in the moment. The motto's I am. It's all about them. They can be very subjective until they get older and they start evolving. They start kind of moving more towards Libra energy, somewhere in the middle there. And so they start moving towards being more diplomatic and seeing both sides, which is where you're at right now, where you're looking at government, you're learning about different cryptocurrency. And so that's more of a Libra energy. The thing I like about Aries is they stand by their convictions. And if they don't hold grudges typically, unless something in their chart dictates. So if you make an Aries friend mad, they're gonna forgive you. And that's really nice to know. Your Venus and Aquarius, when it comes to romance and stuff like that, you're like, no. So that's something about Aries, and every sign's got physical features that you look for.
Really?
Pointy nose.
Oh, really?
Do
I have the feature?
Is an Aries, it's an Aries trait, yeah.
Really?
And so if they don't already have it, they'll get a nose job to have a pointier nose.
Oh my God, that's
I've met
funny.
them too.
That's
So,
wild.
but Aries very much lives in the moment. And they deal with things as they come. And I like that. And my friend Tom McMullen, who's the astrologer, says Libra's Aries with manners.
Yeah, that's
So-
exactly right.
so-
So is it my saving grace then that I
Your
have
Libra
my
rising?
Libra rising?
Your Libra rising is how people see you and what you put out into the world. And
Mm-hmm.
so they see you as more diplomatic and a communicator.
Mm-hmm.
That's Libra. A lot of Aries aren't communicators, they're just doers. So that gives you an air element that is communication. So that actually helps you in TV. And interviews
Yeah,
is that you
totally,
have that. Because if you have the sun and moon in Aries,
Yeah.
if you didn't have that Libra rising, you would be saying things that people would be like, what? What did she just say?
But without the Sagittarius humor to it,
Right,
which
right.
is just priceless. They get away with
Yes,
everything,
they
and then
do.
I'm people are like, "You're kind of a dick," and I'm like, "I know I can be. I don't always mean it."
Aries is a warrior energy. So warrior souls that are women, that are Aries, can come off as masculine. But I like that because I have that too. I'm a Mars in Aries, so I come
Yeah.
off that way too. I've taken race car driving school.
Yeah, girl.
Like Aries drive too fast. They're in a hurry. They're impatient as hell, you know.
Oh my
and,
gosh.
and when they believe in something, they're very aggressive
Yeah.
as to how they go about it,
That's right.
achieving their objective.
Yeah,
And so they're great at starting businesses, making them successful, and selling them. So,
starting so far.
but the other end of Aries, remember, is Libra. That's your opposition. So every year, 6 months across from your birthday is each sign's opposition. Every year that we go into Libra for 4 weeks, every Aries on the planet goes under at the same time. So you're not being singled out. It's all Aries aspects go under in Libra, where you're challenged to grow. And that's really what an opposition is.
And that always happens on your birthday?
No, that would happen for Libras right around September 22nd through October 22nd is when the sun is in Libra, and that's when Aries goes under.
Okay,
So
okay.
it's for those 4 weeks that things don't feel comfortable to you, where you need to remember to be more diplomatic and not aggressive, because aggressive doesn't work in Libra. Libra doesn't like it, and the people you're dealing with aren't going to respond well to you. But it's good to know these things, because then it buffers you, because you remember it.
I feel like, whether it's mediumship or astrology or any of these things, these are all things that people are like, is it real? And,
Yeah.
and here you are, telling us such in depth about astrology. How did that come up for you, and like, how did that prove out for you? Because I studied astrology myself a little bit. I took a couple levels of astrology. It can be overwhelming because there's like transits, and every couple of days you're in a new moon essentially. So it's like there's a lot going on, and it can be like almost
a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, it can be
overwhelming. Yeah,
at
I
times,
agree.
or even like lead you, as opposed to like, it's like, oh shoot, we're going into Cancer. Here we go.
Yeah,
Instead
yeah.
of life happening, then you go, oh, I guess it's in Cancer. It can kind of lead you.
Yeah.
So how did you, like, what makes you believe in astrology, and or what have you been
Aquarius
told about
rules astrology.
That's a
So
fact, yes.
The reason, even when I was a little girl, I'd put the quarter in the machine for the little scrolls that would come out with your astrological forecast.
I mean, I've
Like,
always
I was
been
that
interested
kid.
in it. I called an astrologer for my 18th birthday living in England,
Right?
so I love this stuff.
So that could be your Venus and Aquarius that vibes with it, or you have a bunch of planets in the 11th house, which is Aquarius energy too. So for me, I became friends with Tom McMullen 20 years ago, and he's a great karmic astrologer. I'd never met an astrologer that saw the karma that you brought into this lifetime in your chart. Also past lives, which totally makes sense to me. And it has more to do with why we do certain things. He'd look at someone's chart and say, you were persecuted for your beliefs by the church. And the person will say to him, his client, I can't walk into churches, and I never knew why.
How can you see that in a chart?
That's why he's the astrologer. Like, I play around with
He's
it, but
psychic
like
too.
he's the real deal. Well, you have to be a little yeah, you see more than is just the aspects.
Yeah.
So for me, when I look at the astrology, I can see things as, for instance, on my podcast, we had an episode a few weeks ago. Tom came on. He was looking at all the aspects of what are coming up. He said, you're going to start to see a lot of fires. And I looked at him and I said, California. So he and I sort of each give a half of what we see coming. So we sort of work in tandem together, because he's doing it, looking at the astrology and from his own sense. But he's a Libra, so he's a little idealistic, and he's like, well, it doesn't have to be. I'm like, it's California, because it's always California, it had to be there. So that's sort of, he comes over every Sunday for family dinner at my house. My best friend is a 69-year-old gay man that's an astrologer, and that's just that's what it is. And so I've spent the last 20 years just talking astrology with him and the energies and really absorbing it, and my kids know it, and it's what our family is comfortable with knowing. But I will put up on my Instagram like the moon moving every 2 days so people can see what that means, what energy to expect. And it's not that you live by it and that you don't do things that you would normally want to do. It tells you it's going to rain and you might want to bring an umbrella. That's what Tom says, and he's right. So I just use it as some sort of a barometer of what's a time of year that's good to have surgery. That would be in Virgo or Pisces, because Virgo and Pisces rule health. And the best doctors that are surgeons are Virgo, because they're good with fine details, and it makes them more focused on that. All signs absorb these energies as they change. We take on the energy. So just because someone will say, well, we went into Capricorn, but I'm not a Capricorn, it's like, but you're going to be looking at your finances for the next 4 weeks, because you absorb the energy. And so we have to be aware of the movement so that we understand our own feelings and responses and why we may be reacting the way that we are.
It does explain things many
times.
Times.
Pisces, when we go into 4 weeks of Pisces, that's illusion and delusion is part of that energy. And when a Pisces is born, they say lock the liquor cabinet. They can be excessive. They're born without borders and boundaries. So are there exceptions? Yeah, you got to look at the whole chart. But by nature, when we go into Pisces, a lot of people get suicidal, and I know to expect those calls, because they get delusional and they reach out for some sort of a quick fix in drugs or alcohol. It can cause passings. So I know what the energy is, and I follow it so that I know what's coming.
Yeah. My Mercury's in Pisces, which is like the way that you think.
Communicate.
And I have like, I have very illusion. I like dreaming ideas.
Yes.
I can like spin off in my head and just like be looking blank off into space, and I got a whole thing going on in there.
No, I get it. I'm a Venus in Pisces, so I was looking for the storybook romance, even though I didn't fully believe in it. I am like easily disappointed. I can feel like a victim in love, because I have that Venus in Pisces, but I also believe it makes me human, because it makes people feel more, and it balanced out my Aquarius nature that can be very aloof. And so I think my Venus in Pisces is probably that nice part of me that needs to be there.
We all need some of that.
Yeah, we need something. My poor husband.
What?
High expectations, very high.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, he can handle it.
He's the man, I'm telling you. He's a Gemini, Libra, rising, moon in Aquarius. I'm like, you're all air.
Wow.
He's a thinking man.
Wow.
Yeah, but his moon in Aquarius lines up with my sun in Aquarius, and that's what you look for in a couple's chart. If his moon was, well, you're all Aries. You'd look for a moon in Aries or a sun in Aries to understand your energy and complete you, but that they would have other aspects that balance you out and ground you as well. So because I'm a sun in Aquarius, my husband just happened to be a moon in Aquarius. That was just because I listened to my heart and my soul. I didn't really know astrology at the time that we met. I was 20. So, but he ended up being a moon in Aquarius, and I swear, when the man is cold, I'm like, that is so hot. Like, only an Aquarian would appreciate that. I'm like, ooh, that cut cold, honey. I'm like, that was. I'm like, that was like very sexy. So that's why we look. It
explains things.
Yes, it does explain things, and it helps you to understand your partner better too.
I do like that about it, is that it kind of does explain things.
Yeah.
So if we're like looking at, we're in January, so with like January, February time, like what is specifically happening during that time that we should look for? Because this episode will be out during that time.
Okay, so around the 20th of January, because it can fluctuate a day or two, sun's going to move into Aquarius.
Yeah.
And so you're going to see a lot of breakups, because we have a 9-year on top of the sun in Aquarius for 4 weeks. So it'll go through roughly February 20th, that 4-week space. There's going to be so many people that just throw down the gauntlet and they're like, I'm done. And that's going to happen.
Oh, this is the done energy time.
This is the done energy time. This is where we're going to throw out every relationship that doesn't serve us. So I always tell people in that aspect, especially if you're Leo, because you'll be in your 4-week opposition, don't quit your job unless you mean it. Unless you've thought it through ahead of time, don't throw down the gauntlet. Because people end up doing that and it feels good at the time and then they regret it. So Aquarius is going to make people not care. You're not going to care about getting rid of people in your life. You're not going to care about leaving the job. You're just not going to care. They're going to want to pick up and go. So that's the energy. It is humanitarian, so you're probably going to hear a lot of talks about rebuilding the homes, and I don't know how they couldn't look at North Carolina since that's being brought up by their senators now, like, what about us?
I went there,
so
it's awful.
It's terrible. We donated, and I wish it's freezing out there and those people need help. You're going to see the funding start to be like really move forward or expedited for all of the states affected.
More here.
Right, yeah, you're going to see, well, that's Aquarius. Aquarius, even though she's a humanitarian, she is very strong with her borders and boundaries, and that's also how I knew Trump would be elected, because he's going to strengthen the borders, literally, of the country, and that's Aquarian. So yeah, you're going to see the government have to make some big decisions, because the people are going to be like, round it up. We don't have endless money and our wallet's getting thin. Yeah. So you're going to see all of that happening, but you will see the funding, I believe, come to fruition for the places that need it in that Aquarian energy, which is good, because after that it's Pisces, which gets very delusional and we'll be fine, and not thinking of consequences as much. They see things the way they want to see things. So you're going to hear more of a backlash then of, you know, people spinning theories, or I can't even say conspiracy theories anymore, because a lot of them came to be fact.
Right.
But people saying kind of crazy things in Pisces.
I think it was either the front of the New York Times maybe yesterday or something. It said, like, basically in the headline it said conspiracy theories, and I'm like, we've done it. We've made it. We've really done it. It's now the front page of the newspaper.
That's so funny. We're like, good job, good job.
Now it's actually a term we all get.
Yeah. No, for sure. So Pisces, you're going to see a resurgence of that. Sort of that crazy. But on the podcast episode that I did, Tom broke down the whole year.
Oh, cool.
If people want to listen to 2025. But we've got Neptune, which is a Pisces planet, moving into Aries in April of this year. It will be there for 14 years. So for me, Neptune being already a Pisces planet and having been in Pisces for 14 years was sort of a drunk Disney character acting as a planet for us. So it was a lot of delusion, illusion, drugs, a lot of issues there. So Neptune represents mass consciousness, illusion, delusion, idealism, confinement, and loss, service to the whole. So this is the dissolving of that energy and a returning to the source is what Neptune and Aries will do. So it's a cleansing effect. Neptune's going to go into Aries in April, so you're starting to already feel the effects of Neptune leaving Pisces and going into Aries. And so you're going to see it being a little bit more aggressive. And so you're going to see on a smaller scale, apply it to California. We talked about this, the politics and government. So when it ends up in Aries in April, we're going to begin to feel the change all through the next 14 years. And then we've got Pluto and Aquarius as well. So it's our mass consciousness, illusion, delusion, all that changing and becoming more aggressive and focused in Aries. Aries is also war. So we've got two planets around the same time leaving one sign and entering Aries, both of them, Neptune and Saturn. Saturn was also in Pisces. Saturn's government, it's restriction, it's structure, it's everything serious. It's a Capricorn nature planet. It's been in Pisces for all these years, and that is not great. And so it's finally leaving that. So it wasn't feeling good there. And so it's leaving that sign, going into Aries, and you're going to see government and war. So you're going to see you're already seeing them fighting in the government to find order to the government. So that goes along with it, because we're already feeling these effects going on. So with it in Aries, it also rules military, Saturn in Aries, because military structure, and it's also war. So you're going to see our military get ramped up and built up, and it's going to grow and be properly structured, and the discipline will be there. Instead of us having kids that are too overweight, which would be more Pisces, because no borders and boundaries with the people that were coming into the militaries, with it leaving Pisces and going into Aries, it becomes more cut, fit, more of an athlete energy.
I just saw Megyn Kelly going off about firefighters in California being like overweight women, and she went off, she's like, we want a big strong man to save us, okay? Is that so much? Like, we don't need to turn woke into everything.
Right, right.
These are firefighters.
Right. Well, I know that they had one of the people running that was a firefighter that I don't even know what to say. Doesn't have a great physicality as far as strength goes to her. Saying that if a man needs to be saved, they're basically going to have to figure it out for themselves, you know, and if they're a big guy, you know, that they can probably get out themselves. So, I mean, come on, we can't have it that way. So that's Pisces. Okay. So you're starting to see that go away. Good. We're going to go into Aries. Aries is going to like snap things into shape. Yes, cheers to that. And so Saturn will function, I think, well, my sense, in Aries, because the government structure will keep war under control. So again, I see as the months move on and we go through June, I see us as ending conflicts around the world. Great. And if we have to do that by a show of force, we'll do it. That's Aries. Aries is like nose to nose with you, like, what do you want to do? Yeah. You know, what's your next move?
Strength through power.
That's really what you're going to see.
Power through strength.
Yes. So another thing about Aries, it's a sign that tears things down and then rebuilds. So with Saturn being in Aries, it's going to tear down the way things have been and build things new, which is even in Pacific Palisades, North Carolina, California. You're going to see everything get torn down, the houses, the government, and rebuilt. So all of this is going on, and you can see the rebuilding of the new structures are in the placements of where they need to be for the homes to be rebuilt, but also our government. So on an individual view, I'd say this is for you to be aware of self-structure and self-discipline. People as individuals taking responsibility for their own actions and being self-disciplined and self-structured and more independent. So you're going to see more independence coming out, higher expectations of people to be able to take care of themselves. And so you're going to see a spotlight on that as well. I asked Tom, and I have to give him credit because I'm a medium. You know, I just know astrology, but he's like the karmic, you know, astrology genius. I don't claim to be that person. 3 words to describe 2025. He said change, which is Aquarius, unexpected, and compassion. So it's going to be about feeling compassion for those who truly deserve it, and also everything that you've known for the last 14, 16 years, as all the planets are changing and moving into new signs that are more aggressive, is gone. And you're going to see it be completely rebuilt. Wow. So to me, I'm like, this is good. We need change. And I don't mean change in our pocket. I mean, we need the economy to grow. We need to feel safer. You know, I mean, I went to school to try and put bad guys away to help save kids, and I just saw a free-for-all on kids for the last few years, which was really hard to see, and have people play it off as though it wasn't that many that got hurt. It's like, one's too many. One is too many. And so, you know, for the parents of those children, they shouldn't have to feel that. These are preventable deaths. Right. That's how I look at them. That's why I won't jump out of an airplane. It's preventable death. I won't do it. And so that's what I see.
I've done it twice for television.
I have no doubt.
And I'm like, I'm pretty sure this would make really bad TV if I died right here, so I bet I'm going to be okay.
I have no doubt that you jumped out of a plane. I wouldn't even need to ask that. It was just a given. Aquarius, another thing about her nature is if you tell her not to do something, she's going to do it. So you're going to hear in government some people be like, you can't do that, and the government's going to be like, watch me.
Oh,
so it's going to be interesting.
Gosh.
But you're going to see governments around the world turn over. Capricorn, Pluto in Capricorn was the old institution, and the structure that we knew that is old-fashioned, it's the way it had been, it's the way we always knew it to be, is gone. It's securely in Aquarius for 20 plus years, and it's somewhere between 20 and 22 years that it goes into, that it's going to be Pluto in Aquarius. You're going to see the rebel yell, and she's going to do what she wants for the people, and you're going to see rebellion of the people against governments around the world. That's what's going to be going on. So like I said, pop your popcorn, get your bottle of wine. I'm here for it as long as people are safe and happy. I'm good. and I'm just, it's been so painful to watch so many preventable deaths. Having worked in the criminal justice system and been such a fighter to protect women from rape and murder. And I've always said to my husband, if men were being raped at the rate that women have for all of time, rape would be a death penalty crime. But it's become accepted to where we teach our daughters to look over their shoulders, and we have to carry weapons, and it's insane. It's like, get your boys under control.
We're in a horrible revolution of sex with with Pornhub and pornography and all those things. And I just saw a woman, you know, bragging about that she slept with over 1,000 men in a day and only took a 3-minute break. It was the longest break she took. And it's like, what? And this make like.
Did she have an epidural so she didn't feel anything? Like, how would that even go? That's insane.
This is not a good time.
No, it's not a good time, and kids watch that. Kids watch that. And
this is creating a lot of dysfunction.
So, but here's what's going to happen: the people are going to reach a consensus through this rebellion, and find some sort of a mid place of what's acceptable. What's decent? Right. So you're going to see things that have been swinging left and right. Finally, we're going to get to a place where we're like, okay, this makes sense. Can we all agree that this makes sense? And we'll get to that place. So all of this is necessary, and I'm sorry that it hurts that people go through these levels of transformation, but unfortunately the universe has to act because often we are afraid to. And I think a lot of people live out of fear, and I always have said life doesn't stand for live in fear every day. It just doesn't. You've got to take risks.
What do the dead say about how to live? Like regrets that they have, and then what they should have done more of, because with all of the talk about everything going on can be scary. But what's the point, and what should we do more of and less of? So straight up, the dead have always told me, take risks. And they wish they could come back. Some of them do. Our souls that haven't completed some sort of a revolution of what they need to, feel or experience in life, they'll come back. But they basically say, I wish I'd taken more chances in life. I wish I hadn't worked myself into the ground and not spent time with my family is a big one that comes through. I wish I'd spent more time playing with my kids. Which I think parents now need to look at from a different level, because they're letting them be babysat on some levels by iPads. And so they're going to come through and regret not having been more hands-on, more, tents in the backyard and telling ghost stories and making s'mores. That's what they should be doing. So the dead show me their versions of heaven, and all of them include living life large. I see the 1960s, the early 60s all the time, the Mad Men parties. Like when I'm bringing people through, they'll show all these, the music and the cocktails. There's cocktails on the other side. If you enjoyed them here, it's there. I bring through people who died of lung cancer that's like, won't kill me now. They're smoking, but they're the funniest beings. And they say, live life large. The biggest characters that come through are the ones that lived their truth. The ones that were unafraid of other people and their expectations of them and their opinions of them. So one thing the dead have been saying a lot lately is, don't worry about people who won't even be at your funeral. Don't worry about what they think about you. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. So that's one of the big ones.
a lot of, I'll bring through a lot of couples, men and women, who will say they were in love, they'll give an age, and the kids that I'm reading that are grown will say, oh yeah, my parents were married 20 years and they got a divorce. And I'm like, your mom went back to when she fell in love with your dad, because that's the happiest she ever was. Even though they got a divorce, that was her heaven. She chose him in the end. And you can do that if you have unfinished business with a spouse and you have a regret. So a lot of them regret not trying harder in their relationships to save it when it was worth saving. And some people try too hard to save relationships that aren't worth saving. So a lot of them will say they wish they had less ego in those moments and they'd swallowed their pride and worked it out, because that's who they truly love. And so I see the regrets about all things family. For women, sometimes it's about career and not being able to have the opportunities, because I bring through women of the past that didn't have the opportunities that we have to do what they wanted to do, to be a doctor, to be a lawyer. We have those opportunities now. They can do that. But back in 1950, not so easy. But the real rebels, they fought and they did it anyways, you know, those women. So those women wouldn't have regrets around that. They wouldn't care that they had to be the pioneers. It's the ones that either were denied and stopped fighting for it, or just were unable to, they couldn't afford it. They come back and they get to relive a life in a time where women have more opportunities. And I find that very healing for the souls on the other side as well. So, but they're like, go for it. If it's what you want to do, don't take your second choice job. And this is what people are doing now. They're quitting those jobs and they're going and doing what they wanted to do originally, what their soul is, where they want to be. And so I'm excited to see them doing that. I'm like, look, you may be not 22 where you'd be younger going to school, but 5 years will pass anyways. Just go back, get the piece of paper. You can say you did it. And that's a part of a lot of people's soul contracts. And I think with women especially, everyone's looking for the love of their life, because they think that has to be their soul's only purpose for being here now. For a lot of women, it's not. For a lot of women, it was career. It was to achieve something they couldn't achieve in a past life. That could be you.
It's probably me, so.
Doesn't mean you can't find love. It doesn't mean you can't find love. I just mean for some women, it's not their sole purpose of why they're here. There was something bigger for them that they needed to achieve.
I love the lessons, right?
Yeah.
Like, I always come back to, like, what's the point? So thank you for sharing what the other side says is the point, as well as the things that we need to be thinking about and looking out for. And get ready for change, people. Let's go.
I'm excited. Round them up. Like, it's gonna get interesting this year, but people don't have to be afraid of it. There are going to be a lot of deaths. So along the regret line, I will say, if there's someone you love that's older, don't wait to go visit them next year. Go now. Take them, spend a little too much money, bring them all the gifts you forgot or didn't bother to send them for their birthday or Christmas. Make it all about them. Make them feel like the king or the queen of your world. Spend the time, because when they're gone, they don't need your love and your regrets once they're gone. They need your love now. And so for the people out there that there's someone that you actually is so important to you and was pivotal in your life, and you keep meaning to let them know, do it now, or you're going to lose the opportunity. A 9-year will end lives as well. 2016 was the last time we had a 9-year. How many people died in 2016? David Bowie, Prince, Glenn Frey, a bunch of athletes passed, like hundreds of people. The posthumous memorialization of dead celebrities in 2016 lasted over an hour for the Grammys and the Academy Awards. It's going to be that year again. So you're going to see a swift hand take out the people who are done with their soul's purpose.
I better wear my seatbelt.
Well, it's a good year to wear your seatbelt too. Yeah, it's going to take out some people we're not expecting as well. So this is a 9-year. Next year's a 1-year. It's a year of new beginnings. 2026 added up. 1 is what it reduces to, and a year of new beginnings. So this is just the universe cleaning out the stuff that doesn't need to be there anymore. Next year we get a whole new story. It's going to be
Amen.
good. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alice.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
So fun to finally meet you in person.
Oh, I hope I'll see you again.
I'll bring the drinks next time.
I will look forward to it.
Thanks everybody for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.